My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Let me ask you a question, one we've all faced but rarely admit out loud. How many times have you stood for Salah, made the takbir, recited the words, and by the time you reach the first sada, your mind is a million miles away? You're planning your day, replaying an argument, worrying about a bill, or even making a mental shopping list. You finish the prayer and instead of feeling a divine connection, you feel a hollow emptiness, a sense of having just performed a series of robotic movements. This, my friends, is the struggle of our time. It's not a sign of a weak faith. It is the battlefield of the modern believer. Our hearts are present, but our minds are under constant attack from distraction. But here is the good news. The fact that you feel this disconnect, that you long for that presence, that is a mercy from Allah. That longing is the seed of Iman crying out for water. It means your heart is still alive and it remembers what it feels like to be close to its Creator. The feeling is one of the most universal, yet most isolating experiences for a believer in the modern world. You complete your Salah, you utter the final taslim, and instead of that profound, grounding serenity you read about in the books of the righteous, you are met with a hollow echo. A sense of having gone through the motions, of having performed a sequence of physical postures while your inner self, your afkaab, your heart, was entirely elsewhere. It's as if you showed up for the most important meeting of your life, but you left your mind and soul waiting outside the door. This disconnect, this spiritual static, is not a minor inconvenience, it is a deep soul-level frustration. We look at the descriptions of the Prophet and his companions in prayer, how they would be so immersed that they were oblivious to the world around them, and we feel a pang of something between envy and despair. How can we, with our cluttered minds and perpetually buzzing pockets, ever hope to attain even a fraction of that presence? The first and most critical step on the path to reclaiming our Salah is to reframe this experience entirely. We must cease seeing it as a personal failure, a sign of our weak Iman, and begin to recognize it for what it truly is, the inevitable reality of the spiritual battlefield in the 21st century. Our environment is almost scientifically engineered to fragment our attention. The constant notifications, the endless scroll of information, the pressure to multitask, and the culture of immediacy have rewired our neural pathways to crave distraction. Our minds, accustomed to flitting from one stimulus to the next, do not simply switch off because we have stood up and said, Allahu Akbar. They carry that momentum of distraction into our prayer. This is not an excuse, but rather an explanation. It is the nature of the enemy we face. To blame ourselves entirely is like a soldier blaming himself for being shot at in a war zone. The problem isn't merely the soldier's vulnerability, it is the fact that he is in a field of constant crossfire. Our minds are in a similar state of siege. Recognizing this external reality is crucial because it removes the layer of self-flagellation that often compounds the problem. We move from, I am a bad Muslim because I can't focus, to, I am a striving Muslim, living in a world of unprecedented distraction, and I need to develop new strategies to protect my prayer. But the external environment is only half the story. The internal landscape of our own hearts plays an equally pivotal role. The worries we carry are not trivial. They are the very substance of our lives. The argument with a loved one, the anxiety over a financial deadline, the excitement for an upcoming event. These are powerful emotional currents that do not dissipate when we begin our recitation. They swirl beneath the surface, pulling our attention away from the divine words. Our Salah becomes a mirror, reflecting the state of our inner world. If our heart is filled with the clutter of worldly anxieties, our prayer will feel cluttered. If it is heavy with grief or anger, our prayer will feel heavy. This is why the scholars of the heart often said that the state of a person's Salah is a direct reflection of the state of their life outside of it. A scattered life leads to a scattered prayer. This realization is not meant to discourage us, but to invite us into a more holistic approach to Iman. Improving our focus in Salah isn't just about what we do in those 10 minutes. It's about how we manage our thoughts, our emotions, and our attachments throughout the other 23 hours and 50 minutes of the day. Now let us turn to the more hopeful, the more profound part of this first step, the longing itself, that feeling of emptiness after a rushed and disconnected prayer, that yearning for something more, that faint memory of a time when prayer did feel peaceful. Do not dismiss this. This is not a cause for despair. On the contrary, this is the clearest sign that your faith is alive and well. It is the spark that refuses to be extinguished. Imagine a man who has become numb to pain. He can injure himself and feel nothing. Is that a state of health? No, it is a state of profound sickness. The ability to feel pain is a sign that the nerves are functioning, that the body is alerting you to a problem. In the same way, the spiritual discomfort you feel after a distracted prayer is your heart's nervous system sending you a vital signal. It is your innate fitra, the pure, primordial disposition upon which Allah created you, crying out for its true purpose. It is the seed of Iman, buried under the dust of distraction, but still thirsting for the water of true connection. This longing is in fact a divine mercy. It is Allah's subtle and gentle way of pulling you back to Him. He says in the Quran, "So remember me, I will remember you." The first part of that covenant, the remember me, is initiated by Him through placing this yearning in your heart. That feeling of dissatisfaction is a form of His remembrance of you. It is His way of not letting you become content with a hollow ritual of stirring a holy discontent within you so that you seek Him with greater sincerity. The companions and the righteous predecessors feared nothing more than a heart that became hardened, a state where they could perform acts of worship without any feeling whatsoever. They would beg Allah to protect them from a salah that did not humble them. So, when you feel this longing, thank Allah for it. Embrace it. See it not as your failure, but as His invitation. It is the starting point of every spiritual revival. The journey of 1,000 miles begins not with the first step, but with the discontent of staying where you are. Your distracted prayer and the subsequent feeling of emptiness is that divine discontent. It is the catalyst for everything that follows. Therefore, be grateful for this ache in your soul, for it proves that you are alive, that you are capable of more, and that your Lord is lovingly calling you back to the serenity of His presence. The transition from the clamor of our daily lives into the profound silence of standing before the divine is perhaps the most critical and most neglected phase of our prayer. We often treat the commencement of Salah as a sudden, sharp line in the sand. One moment we are immersed in the world, and the next we are expected to be immersed in communion with the Creator of the worlds. We stand up, perhaps still breathless from rushing, our minds still echoing with the last conversation we had or the last email we read, and we utter the takbir, hoping that the mere pronunciation of the words will magically quiet the storm inside. But the heart and the mind do not operate with such immediacy. They require a bridge, a transitional space, a deliberate and conscious journey from the realm of the mundane to the precinct of the sacred. This bridge is what we call preparation, and it is the fundamental difference between a salah that feels like a checked-up box and a salah that feels like a homecoming. Consider a powerful metaphor. Imagine you have been granted a private, personal audience with the most benevolent king, the sovereign of all sovereigns, in whose hand is the dominion of the heavens and the earth. This is not a metaphorical king, but the true king, Al-Malik. How would you prepare for such an encounter? Would you simply rush into the throne room, disheveled and distracted, your thoughts still on the traffic outside the palace gates? Or would you begin your preparation long before you cross the threshold? You would carefully select your attire, not merely for appearance, but as a sign of respect. You would still your breathing and calm your nerves. You would rehearse in your mind what you would say, approaching with a mixture of awe, hope, and immense gratitude for the privilege. You would leave your worldly concerns at the door, understanding that to bring them in would be an act of profound disrespect. Now, reflect every single salah as an audience with that very king. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, when you pray, you are conversing with your Lord. This is not a mere ritual, it is a conversation, an audience, a meeting of the most profound order. The failure to prepare for it is the primary reason we often feel like we are talking to a wall. We have not truly shown up for the conversation ourselves. This preparation begins not with the first takbir, but with the call to prayer, the adhan. The muaddin's call is not merely a notification that a time slot has arrived. It is a divine invitation. It is the royal herald announcing that the gates of the king's court are now open for you. When you hear, Hayya ala Salah, a come to prayer, it is a direct summons to your soul. The proper response is not to grumble or to hurriedly finish your task, but to echo the caller's words in your heart, to feel a genuine pull, a coming towards the prayer. This mental and emotional shift is the first act of preparation. It is the moment you tell yourself, everything else can wait. I am being called by my Lord. This simple internal acknowledgement begins the process of disengaging from the world's gravitational pull. The next and most tangible stage of this preparation is wudu, the ablution. We often reduce wudu to a mechanical process, a checklist of body parts to be washed. But in its spiritual essence, wudu is a powerful symbolic cleansing. It is not just water on skin, it is a ritual of purification for the soul. As you wash your hands, intend to wash away the transgressions they have committed. As the water passes over your mouth, intend to purify your speech from falsehood and gossip. As you clean your nostrils, intend to cleanse yourself of breathing in the aromas of arrogance and worldliness. As you wash your face, intend to wipe away the gaze that has fallen upon the forbidden. As you wash your arms to the elbows and your feet to the ankles, intend to purify all your actions and your path from walking towards sin. Every drop of water is a mercy, an eraser of minor sins, as mentioned in the hadith. But beyond the expiation of sins, wudu is a psychological trigger. It is a sensory experience, the feel of cool water, the sound of its flow, that signals to your entire being, you are now transitioning. You are washing away the dust of the world. You are preparing to stand in a sacred space. A rushed, inattentive wudu leads to a rushed, inattentive prayer. A mindful, contemplative wudu is the first brick laid on the bridge to presence. Finally, there is the immediate pre-salah moment. The time between the iqamah and the first takbir is perhaps the most precious. This is the final approach. The world should be silenced here. This is not the time for a last-minute glance at your phone or a final hurried instruction to a family member. This is the time for stillness. Find your spot. Stand calmly. Lower your gaze to the place of your prostration. Take a deep, conscious breath, and as you exhale, imagine releasing all the tangled threads of worldly worry from your grasp. In this quiet moment, engage in the opening supplication, the dua al-istiftah. I have turned my face sincerely towards He who fashioned the heavens and the earth. Let these words not be empty sounds, but a profound declaration of your intention. This is where you make the conscious internal niyaya, not just to perform 4 rakahs of dua, but to stand before Allah, to seek His nearness, to converse with Him. This intentionality is the engine of your prayer. Without it, the body may be performing the movements, but the soul has not yet arrived. When you finally raise your hands and say, Allahu Akbar, it should be the natural, culminating act of this entire preparatory journey. It is the final closing of the door on the world and the full turning of your face, your heart, and your mind towards the divine. It is in this state of prepared reverence that the words you recite will begin to find a home in your heart, and the feeling of Allah's presence will cease to be a distant hope and become a tangible reality.